Welcome to The Jump. I'm Rich Bowers, and with me today I have two experts who are going to help us cover our topic today thoroughly. First up, we have Danielle. You may remember her from a previous discussion. She is a human capital manager. Good afternoon, Danielle.
Good afternoon. Happy to be here.
Thanks for being on again. And Sean Bryson, our first time joining us on The Jump, and I am so excited to have you here. Sean, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so jump into our topic. Just this week, Meta announced that they have plans of launching an educational product later this year that they say will make their Quest headsets basically a key piece of educational and school equipment. So, Danielle, can you start us off by sharing what Meta's vision is a little bit more in detail?
Of course. So, Meta overall, right now, they really want to bring not only virtual reality, but also augmented reality to the classrooms. So, funny enough, this was actually requested by the educators and teachers themselves. It wasn't even Meta looking out to find where else can we get money in for ourselves. So, overall, what they're looking to do is really bring this and roll it out by beginning of this actual fall semester. So, definitely exciting. We'll see if they're able to hit that target.
Okay, it's going to be cool. I mean, it makes sense, but do we know what this educational product will look like at all? Were there any hints or ideas?
There were a few hints in a couple of different articles that I read. Overall, with Meta, though, they did say within the next about 1 to 2 months or so, we should anticipate not only the name of the product, but also a lot of their key features. So you can look at an example. I think it was Prisms recently. They actually rolled this out a few years ago within mathematics specifically. So it's going to create that entire suite for you to really the infrastructure behind it, of course, the headsets. And then it'll be up to the third party app developers to really be able to create what those applications and learning styles look like.
Great. A picture in Roblox probably getting in the
Exactly.
mix there, right? So thank you for that, Danielle. Sean, you run technical training courses and you're an educator yourself. Can you walk us through a couple of the highlights of maybe pros and cons that you could foresee with using VR or AR?
Absolutely. I'm normally one to hear the bad news first, so I'm going to kind of start with the cons and then kind of warm up to the potential here. So I think with any new and exciting technology, you always risk losing a subsection of, your demographic, in this case, students. And it could be due to budget or motion sickness or just being overwhelmed with the technology. There's going to be some students that just, they lose out on maybe the full experience of what this can really offer. However, we always see growing pains like this. And if we're adopting any kind of new technology or just going through change in our culture. So I think many students will see this as an opportunity to harness this powerful technology that is being made widely available. And I think that's really key, is that this is kind of a democratization of this technology, and it's just going to become more widespread and more accessible. So there's a ton of potential here. I think obviously visual learners will benefit the most. You could walk through, the Roman Colosseum or the pyramids. You could see a VR close-up of human organs if you're studying biology and anatomy. So there's a lot of potential. So remote learning too, for classes, if you're sick or if there's inclement weather, then you could stay home and still kind of connect virtually with your classroom. So we've really seen studies that support, the learning being enhanced, and also, again, to kind of circle back, some students being a little bit overwhelmed and maybe not engaging as much as others. And it's just hard to say the broader impact that we're going to see here because it's still so early on. So we're really going to have to wait and see, when this technology is more widely adopted, the results of the program and, how many people it reaches are going to be really interesting.
You said a lot of great points there, and I'm going to touch on a few of them more, but one of them was the cons, was the motion sickness piece. I know, for instance, some of my family gets sick when they throw those on. And do you foresee, and I maybe put you on the spot, is there a way around that? So, for instance, if half of the student population, or I think it's actually a pretty decent amount, I think it's something like 17% of people experience some type of motion sickness. Do you know, is there any way around that?
Well, I think those those things are being ironed out as we go. It's just a challenge of putting together technology and building around that. I think eye tracking is really big for decreasing motion sickness. So these more advanced headsets that are more expensive will have those kind of features built in. And I think it's just going to take a while for that to catch up to the commercially available headset that's being used in these classrooms. There's a balance between, we need to make this financially affordable, but also we need to build in the safeguards for motion sickness and things like that. And, for a certain age, you can't even really wear a headset because the ratio of your distance between your eyes is not right. Like
That's a
until
good
your
point.
head is the right size, you can't even wear one of these. So it can't really be used for children. And we're kind of testing how young can you be and use one of these. So that in combination with issues of motion sickness, even in adults, I think there's definitely some concern with rolling this out widespread. But, these are obviously roadblocks that are being addressed by these companies making these headsets, and ideally no one would have motion sickness while putting one of these on. So you have to
That's
find that financial balance.
Yeah, the financial balance too, right? Because they're already running $500 clip on the cheap end. And then we talk about Apple, so, but you said another interesting thing. You kind of gave me the baton to pass this over to Danielle here. Reading these articles, it actually does seem like they're kind of geared towards elementary and middle school. Maybe not the kindergartners who can't fit in there, as what Sean was saying, or first graders, or me in high school. But for the middle school and elementary side, Danielle, what are your thoughts about younger children spending so much of their day? I mean, who knows how long they're projecting this, but it seems like at least 50% of their day in a virtual reality headset. Is this a concern or something that we're just going to see as part of our everyday life going forward?
I think it's a myth. I definitely have quite strong opinions on this, I would say. So we'll start kind of similar like Sean said. I'll start with my cons and my concerns first, and we'll kind of go into the positives from there. But when you look at elementary, even middle schoolers, the main reason why they're in school, of course, really is the socialization piece. So to me, it's more of, are you able to interact with your teacher, able to interact with your peers? If you're stuck on a headset all day, you're in a virtual reality with them where you can have virtual conversations, you could still converse with them and whatnot, but it's not on that deeper level of actual socialization. So you do run into a lot of different risks, such as I know we mentioned overall cyber sickness. So you have those eye issues with the motion sickness. You also can lead to sleep disorders. Think of how much blue light activity they're going to have if it's even just 50% of their day. Also, just really sitting around in a classroom on that all day might not be the best. But then you also really need to look at the educator training. So if these teachers are the ones who are developing what types of programs they're going to be working on through these VR headsets, how well are they trained on it as well, where they can also now monitor a sixth grader who's using it? So of course, there are a lot of different cons to this, but on the plus side, I would say this would be most beneficial in high schools, colleges, and trade schools. So with that being said, of course, you look at the trade school side. I think it's Tulsa Welding School. They're doing the hyperbaric welding virtual reality trainings, which is awesome. You have limited risk there for individuals who maybe aren't going underwater and doing the welding. They're doing practice rounds beforehand. Um, Even looking at like high school biology, I know I was someone who did not want to dissect a frog at all. And a lot of people maybe failed the class because of that. So bringing in that virtual piece, you could still pass. You're, of course, being successful there. And then lastly, at the college level, you also have, I think it's New Mexico University. I know Stanford's using it as well. But they're using it for criminal justice majors, showing them virtual crime scenes. How do you get to investigate really effectively, efficiently, but also how do you process a crime scene without needing to physically be there? So I think you're going to see a lot more pros at the higher levels than you will at the elementary school. My main concern there really is, are the children going to be able to socialize? Are they going to get the most out of it? Or do they look at it more as kind of just a game that you're going to school for?
Everything you said there, I thought was pretty spot on, just from my own opinion. At first, maybe if they do gear this to younger children, then do teachers really just become kind of coaches and mentors, and they throw it on there? We're at the advanced levels, you can provide that theory and in-depth experience, then put them in that virtual reality, potentially using a digital twin, in essence, of a real life physical object or process that they can play with in VR, right? But are we all on the same page then? Awesome for more advanced stuff. Maybe we kind of shy away a little bit from the kids using it.
100%.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Agreed.
Yeah. Cool. So let's take it to advanced even after the college or university, and great examples there, Danielle. Sean, back to you. Let's say that this does work. Let's say that okay, cool. This becomes a little bit more mainstream, or gears that interest back to really kind of the metaverse that we saw a couple of years ago. How do you see this gravitating into a corporate environment, something that we are all in?
I think from a business perspective, this is very much a long-term play, because Meta right now is going for one of the most powerful market demographics, I think, and that is teenagers with their parents' money. Because if you can convince teenagers that something is cool, then they will grow into adults who embrace that tech. And they will also influence people older than them to embrace it as well. Teenagers have always kind of defined trends. And I think that kind of setting the social age of most of their applications to 13 down from 18, it's very clear that they're trying to be trendsetters and integrate themselves with that demographic. And maybe even if these headsets are provided by the school, that could still drive purchases, and that could still, drive adoption overall. And so the next generation of corporate employees could be full of people who grew up with this, right? And so that, like I said, that normalization kind of translates into excitement for the tech across other generations. So ultimately, we'll have to see just how effective VR learning can be. But if this move is successful, I think it really will kind of cause a lot of that apprehension for the tech to fade away as it becomes embraced by young teens and young adults who are essentially deciding what's cool and what's going to be exciting in a career or a corporate environment.
Perfect. You actually brought up a great point. We're running low on time, but I want to ask you each one quick question. Sean, first off, the way you said it's geared towards teenagers and they kind of start a lot of the trends. Do you feel like when the metaverse first came out with Meta, obviously, that they specifically kind of geared it towards corporate meetings right away and maybe just gaming and missed that middle tier a little bit, and that's why it didn't pick up as much as we see?
Absolutely. I think that by gearing it more towards a professional environment, you're losing the younger generation, and that's why they shifted more towards gaming, and that has worked. To be fair, the Oculus really does work as like an accessible gaming headset, because other headsets are so expensive, it makes this one look cheap.
Yeah, you're spot on. Last thing then, Danielle, do you see this being beneficial for a cultural learning, or is it more, do you find, as a roadblock? Could be a roadblock.
I would say personally, I think it's more of a roadblock. I'm someone who's very face to face. I want to, if I'm going to have a meeting with you, let's just jump on a video call. Let's jump on a phone call. I think I like more of that true socialization area where I can actually connect with someone. And I think it's a deeper meaning, in my opinion. I obviously have looked at a lot of the metaverse interviews that have been done, interviews done in the metaverse. It's a cool opportunity. It looks interesting, but I would say I maybe am geared more towards that older generation that maybe says, I'll hold off on this, let the younger kids play with this for now. So I think it's a roadblock on my end. I don't think I would be something I would want to implement on my teams, but let's see how it goes for the education world first. If they can do it effectively and it works and it gets brought into the corporate world, I won't say no to it.
Cool. Great points. Great different viewpoints as well. I really appreciate both your insights in this. As promised, I think we covered this thing pretty thoroughly. So Danielle, Sean, thank you both for being on and sharing your knowledge and understanding of this. And for The Jump, I'm Rich Bowers. Take care, everybody. Bye.